July 10th, 1944. Dawn light filters weakly through the thick Normandy bocage, somewhere southwest of Caen. The air is heavy with the scent of crushed earth, wet leaves, and diesel fumes. You're inside the steel belly of a Panther tank, idling behind a towering hedgerow wall. Oberleutnant Heinrich Brandt wipes sweat from his brow as he peers through the commander's periscope. His gunner chuckles beside him. "Look at them, Herr Oberleutnant. The Americans bring their tin cans to a war of giants." Through the narrow gaps in the ancient earthen banks, they watch columns of American M4 Shermans rumbling forward. Squat, boxy machines painted in olive drab, their 75mm guns looking almost comical next to the Panther's long, lethal 75mm KWK-42. Brandt's crew had heard the stories from the Eastern Front. Tigers and Panthers tearing through Soviet armor like paper. Now these? Ronsons. That's what the veterans called them. Lights up every time. Laughter ripples across the German tank radio net. "They catch fire if you sneeze on them," one commander boasts. "We'll turn this field into a graveyard of burning scrap before lunch." Brandt allows himself a thin smile. His Panther, with its sloped armor and superior gun, could punch through a Sherman at over 2 kilometers. What chance did these overconfident Americans stand in the tight confines of the bocage? The radio crackles with orders. The panzers are to hold and ambush the advancing column. Brandt leans back, confident. Today would be another easy victory for the Reich's armored elite. But across those same hedgerows, something else was stirring.
The morning erupts without warning. American artillery suddenly screams overhead, a howling storm of 105mm and 155mm shells that turns the German positions into a landscape of fire and torn earth. Brandt grips the periscope tighter as explosions ripple across the hedgerow line. "Hold steady!" he barks. His gunner already has a Sherman centered in the crosshairs. The first shot from the Panther is perfect. The 75mm shell punches straight through the frontal armor of the lead American tank. It erupts in flames within seconds. "Ronson!" the crew cheers. One down. But the Americans don't break. They accelerate. Instead of retreating from the ambush, more Shermans pour forward, using every dip and gap in the terrain. Their tracks churn through the soft Norman soil as they weave aggressively between the ancient banks. What they lack in armor, they make up for in raw numbers and speed. "Another one, left flank," Brandt orders. His Panther fires again. Another Sherman dies in a fireball. Yet the American tanks keep coming, their machine guns raking the hedgerows while their own 75mm guns bark back. Some shells bounce harmlessly off the Panther's sloped front, but others find weak points. Then the radio fills with panicked voices. "Tiger 214 is hit! They're flanking us!" Brandt swings his periscope. What he sees makes his stomach tighten. A group of Shermans has somehow maneuvered through a narrow lane the Germans thought impassable. They're not engaging at long range like the Germans expected. They're getting in close, dangerously close, using their faster turret traverse and sheer aggression. Smoke rounds bloom across the field as American artillery walks closer, guided by forward observers who have already crept into the bocage. Brandt's voice cracks over the intercom. "Traverse left! They're inside our perimeter!" The Panther's heavy turret groans as it swings, but the Americans are already too close. A Sherman bursts through a gap in the hedgerow only 80 meters away, its machine gun stitching across the Panther's side armor. Brandt's gunner fires back. The shell slams into the Sherman's hull. Flames leak out of its engine deck immediately. But before the German crew can celebrate, another American tank appears on their right, moving faster than anything they expected in this terrain. The bocage has become a deadly maze. Ancient walls of earth and roots that once protected the Germans now channel the fight into brutal point-blank duels. Shermans dart and reverse with surprising agility, their crews firing on the move while calling in artillery that lands with terrifying accuracy. One Panther tries to back away and immediately bogs down in soft ground. Two Shermans pounce, hammering its thinner side armor until it explodes in a pillar of black smoke and orange fire. "My God," Brandt mutters, watching through the periscope as another Tiger, one of the few heavy beasts in their unit, takes multiple hits. Its massive 88mm gun fires once, destroying a Sherman at close range. But the American crews keep pressing. They swarm like angry hornets. Where one burns, three more appear, using smoke grenades and the natural cover to close the distance. The radial net dissolves into chaos. "We can't hold them at range. They're too fast. My flank is gone." Brandt feels the first real chill of doubt. These were not the clumsy tin cans they had mocked at dawn. These American crews fought with a reckless confidence, supported by an endless storm of artillery that never seemed to run out. The fields ahead were already littered with burning wrecks, but more Panthers and Tigers were joining them than he cared to admit. And still the Shermans came.
The sun climbed higher, turning the Normandy countryside into a furnace. Brandt's Panther shuddered as another American shell slammed against its mantlet, sending sparks dancing across the vision blocks. "Reverse! Reverse now!" he shouted. But the hedgerow behind them blocked easy escape. Tracks spun uselessly in the churned mud as two Shermans pressed forward from the left, their coaxial machine guns hammering relentlessly. One American commander stood half exposed in his turret, directing fire with calm fury. Across the field, the elite of the 12th SS Panzer Division was disintegrating. A Tiger II, pride of the German armor, sat motionless with its turret jammed, smoke pouring from its engine. Three Shermans circled it like wolves, pumping 75mm rounds into its flanks until the beast finally erupted in a cataclysmic explosion that shook the ground. The Americans weren't winning by superior tanks. They were winning with numbers, coordination, and sheer bloody-minded aggression. "Artillery!" Brandt screamed into the radio. But the German guns were being silenced one by American counter-battery fire. Instead, more American shells rained down, perfect, merciless concentrations that blanketed the German positions. Shermans used the smoke and dust to slip even closer, some crews actually dismounting with satchel charges to blow tracks off Panthers at 20 meters. Brandt watched in growing horror as his once invincible unit crumbled. What had started as laughter at the infuriating...
By early afternoon, the once proud German line had become a smoking ruin. Oberleutnant Brandt pressed his face against the periscope, his hands shaking. What he saw was no longer a battle. It was slaughter. His Panther sat exposed now, its companion tanks either burning or silent. Barely 200 meters away, a Sherman crew had just dismounted under fire, slapping a satchel charge onto the side of a crippled Tiger. The explosion that followed ripped the heavy beast open like a tin can. "Fire! Target the lead Sherman!" Brandt roared. His gunner sent another round screaming across the field, striking the American tank squarely. It brewed up instantly, flames leaping 30 feet into the air. But even as the cheers died in his throat, three more Shermans surged through the breach, their guns flashing. One shell struck Brandt's Panther on the side skirt, shredding the track and leaving them immobile. The radio was a cacophony of despair. "This can't be happening! They're everywhere! We're being overrun!" Veterans of Kursk and the Eastern Front, men who had laughed at Soviet T-34s, now sounded broken. The Americans had turned the Bocage into a killing ground where German superiority in single combat meant nothing. Speed, numbers, and that endless rain of artillery had rewritten the rules. Brandt slumped in his commander's seat as smoke began to fill the fighting compartment. Through the vision blocks, he watched another Panther try to withdraw, only to be bracketed and destroyed by coordinated American fire. The same men who had sneered at Ronsons at dawn were now climbing out of their own burning wrecks, hands raised in surrender. The mockery had been answered with fire.
Brandt kicked open the hatch, coughing through the acrid smoke pouring from his dying Panther. His crew tumbled out after him, faces blackened, eyes wide with disbelief. Surrendering to the Americans felt like a fever dream. Just hours earlier, they had mocked these men and their machines. Now, they stood among the wreckage of Germany's finest armor. Across the shattered hedgerow, American infantry moved in carefully, rifles ready. One Sherman idled nearby, its crew leaning out of hatches, watching their prisoners with exhausted but steady eyes. Brant stared at the burning hulks of panthers and tigers scattered like broken toys across the field. The inferior Shermans had done this, not through better guns or thicker armor, but through speed, numbers, and a willingness to close the distance and fight like devils in the tight confines of Normandy. A young American lieutenant approached, pistol drawn but not raised. "You boys thought this was going to be easy, didn't you?" he said in surprisingly good German. Brant could only look away, toward the columns of fresh Shermans rolling forward in the distance. More of them, always more. The truth hit harder than any shell. The German army had bet everything on quality over quantity, on the myth of the invincible tiger and panther. But in the bocage, the Americans had flipped the script. Their Ronsons burned, yes, but so did the best Germany had. And behind every destroyed Sherman stood 5 more ready to take its place.
The summer sun beat down on the scarred Normandy fields as captured German crews sat in stunned silence along the roadside. Oberleutnant Brant stared at the ground, his once immaculate uniform torn and stained with oil. Around him, the true cost of the morning's arrogance lay scattered in twisted metal and black smoke rising into the clear blue sky. What the German High Command had dismissed as American weakness had just shattered an entire panzer battle group. The Shermans, those same inferior death traps, had proven far more dangerous in the bocage than anyone imagined. Their crews used terrain cleverly, called down artillery with deadly precision, and pressed attacks with a speed the heavier panthers and tigers simply couldn't match in the cramped Norman countryside. Where one Sherman burned, another took its place. Where a panther bogged down, American tanks swarmed. By nightfall, reports from across the sector told the same story. Elite German armor, the pride of the Wehrmacht, had been bled white. The bocage, once seen as perfect defensive ground, had become a graveyard for Hitler's panzers. The Americans were learning fast, adapting, and most dangerously of all, they had the industrial might to replace every loss tenfold. Brant looked up as another column of fresh Shermans rumbled past, their crews waving mockingly at the prisoners. The laughter from dawn had vanished. In its place was a cold, sinking realization